tell. I travel a lot for work, and one of the interesting things is I end up traveling a lot through Delta. Now, I really have, when I started traveling Delta, I had very little brand affinity, and I should make that clear up front. I'm not getting paid by Delta in any way, shape, or form. This is about an experience that happened to me. The reason I fly Delta, to be perfectly honest with you, is their planes just happen to be going where I need to go, and Boston serves as a Delta hub, so it's just really convenient in a lot of cases. I don't like traveling too much because 90% of the time I miss this guy, and as I mentioned, my son Frankie is going to pop up again, but I just spend way too much time on the road, and sometimes it's too far away from him and my daughter, of course. And recently, actually about last year, around February of last year, I was traveling to a conference down in Tampa, Florida, a conference called Social Fresh, and if you ever get the chance and you happen to have one of these conferences nearby, it's run by a guy by the name of Jason Keith, and he does an awesome job getting keynote speakers from big brands together to talk about stuff. And I flew down to be part of the conference, and I got there. I did my session, had a great session. Actually stuck around a little bit after and did some networking. And I'm going to ask everybody on the line to avoid those pictures of me with beers in my hands, because after that networking session, I actually got in the car and headed back to Tampa International Airport, trying to catch the night flight back so I could be close to my son again. And as I was heading out, I was about halfway to the airport, and all of a sudden I realized something pretty shocking. I was heading to the airport on the wrong day. Now, for anybody on the line that travels a lot, you know that that's not a tremendously uncommon occurrence. Sometimes if you're balancing a bunch of schedules, it's difficult to figure out when you're supposed to be traveling and where you're heading. But I did what anybody would do, and about halfway down the road, I picked up the phone and I called Delta. And I got a very nice gentleman on the line. I don't know if this is actually his picture or not, but seems to do the job anyway. But I got him on the line, and he was very helpful with me. He said, look, I can get you on tonight's flight. It's not going to be a problem. We can make that change. Challenge is it's going to take us about 45 minutes to an hour. I hope you don't mind staying on the line. I said, absolutely no problem. As long as it gets me home tonight, I'm really happy to do it. And over the course of that half hour, 45 minutes, he made some small talk, asked me why I was getting home, and I told him, I really wanted to see my kids and was pretty excited about it. Well, with that, he got back on the line and he said, hey, no worries, I got you on tonight's flight. So I got to the airport, checked in at the Delta kiosk, and just as the plane doors were closing, just as the flight was about to take off and the flight attendant came on and said it's time to shut down any electronic devices, I sent out a tweet. And the tweet was really simple. It was, I'm on an Delta flight leaving Tampa, can't wait to get home. And on a side note, Delta customer service rocks. I said it before and I continue to be impressed. Hit send, got onto the plane, and I flew all the way back up to Boston. I got to see my son Frankie, and I was incredibly happy that night, as was he. Now, the next day, I hadn't really thought about the tweet. I didn't really think about, what went on in the background. I didn't even think that I had sent something out, but I did receive a great reply when I got back to my desk in the morning. And what the tweet said was, Boston Mike, thanks so much for your comment. We hope you had a great trip home to that new baby. And I stopped for a minute and thought, wow, that's really cool. A brand for the first time is connected with me one-to-one, and doing it through an electronic channel. How cool, is this? It's really awesome. But as I started to think about it a little more, the creepiness factor kind of set in, and I focused on a few words at the end there, to that new baby, and thought, how the heck is it possible that they know that? Well, I started to think about it a little bit more, and I realized it had to be something to do with this guy. So just bear with me a minute. Let me tell you a little bit about what I thought happened over the course of that night and what happened. I thought that I had spoken to a very nice man on the phone who had changed my flight, and as I was on the phone talking to him, he pulled up his CRM system. And as I was talking to him on his CRM system, he pulled up my contact information and started to fill in some fields. In my head, I thought it was Salesforce.com. Of course, it was probably something completely different, but I had the opportunity and thought that this is exactly what he was doing. So he was populating some kind of fields of information and inputting stuff. When I got to the airport, I had sent out that tweet right away, and the minute I did, I thought they had some system that literally sent alerts all through Delta. In fact, in my head, I was pretty sure at this point even the CEO of Delta was notified that it was my turn to follow up with me. And with that, they got a really clean notification saying, this guy, Boston Mike, we captured all this information on, followed up with us, and we need to send him a tweet back, and let's personalize it and make sure we do it based on the information we just collected, which includes something that says, to that new baby. Well, let me tell you what really happened, because in my head, this was phenomenal. This was a wow moment. This was social marketing automation at its best. In my head, I thought that there were systems behind the scene that were weighting and scoring my fields that prompted individuals within Delta, the largest airline in the world, at the time, the largest airline in the world, to follow up with me directly. And as it turns out, what actually happened is a very different story. See, I called Delta the very next day when I got that tweet, got a very nice lady on the phone named Rachel, and she explained to me that what actually happened was that night I was flying home, there was a severe blizzard in Washington, D.C. Some of you may remember it. They got about 9 feet of snow or something, I forget. They couldn't get out of their own way down there, and it actually delayed air travel all over the country. The tweets that they were getting were so bad, most of them. I used to pull up a tweet stream as part of my presentation, and as it turns out that some of the words were a little too offensive for people, so I took it out. But what she saw, and she was the only person monitoring this Twitter stream, Rachel was, and when she saw my one tweet come in, she clicked through to it, saw that it was very nice, went through to my Facebook page, noticed that I had a son that was roughly the same age as her daughter, and made an instant personal connection with me and decided to customize that tweet on the way back. So not as exciting of a story, but a very important one nonetheless, because we live in an age where social media has actually dominated most industries that we're in. And social marketing automation, specifically how we communicate through social media, is incredibly unique for marketers. It's a brand new way of talking to consumers, introducing them to our product, to our services, and getting a